Hey, what's going on? This is my out-of-theater reaction for the new movie, Big George Foreman. The biopic of sorts, I believe, is technically a biopic on George Foreman, following his life, the ups and downs of his, not only his boxing career, but his just his life in general outside of the ring. I was a little bit in the middle on my anticipation for this movie. Did not know much about George Foreman going into this. I'm not really, I wouldn't call myself a boxing fan. I do love sports, but I'm not as familiar as a die-hard boxing fan. So some of the events that this movie covers and some of the trials and tribulations that George Foreman faces in this movie, I was pretty unfamiliar with. I thought it was a fairly interesting ride, this movie. The actor that plays George Foreman, Chris Davis, I thought was really good in this, playing his younger version, his younger adult version, while playing also his older version in this movie. Thought he just did a really good job. The action within some of the fights that they show, I thought was really well done, especially after watching, a movie like Creed, anything in the Rocky franchise. That specific fighting style is just a little different, a little more amplified. I will say this definitely had that more realistic fighting to it. Not that the Rocky franchise doesn't. I don't want to make this turn this into a comparison or anything. I just thought this definitely had more of that kind of Cinderella Man style within the fighting, if you've seen that movie at all. And I mean, just the journey you go on in this film definitely is a fairly typical biopic in terms of, there's going to be some predictable moments in this that, some movie moments where probably, didn't happen in real life in the way it's shown. But overall, it has some very heartwarming moments in this. The journey that George Foreman goes on, I thought was very interesting. How he starts out and didn't start out boxing as a kid, and just how they show his journey of how he got into that, and the way that his anger was early on in his life and how he changes, getting into his preaching, and then of course everything in the later part of his life coming back into the ring. I thought it was all done very well in this. The pacing was really nice. Was very entertaining throughout, and as someone who didn't know much about this story, it was really interesting to get some of the perspective behind it. The woman who plays George Foreman's mom in this, Sonia Sohn, I believe is her name, she did a really good job. And just George Tillman Jr., the director of this, also did the screenplay for this movie. He's really known for Men of Honor, which I did see. I have seen some of that movie, haven't seen all of it yet. I really did like that. Also a producer on some of the barbershop films. Just did a good job directing this movie, and I had a good time overall. So if you're interested in this movie at all, definitely go check it out before it leaves theaters. A Big George Foreman.